We're going to do a video on configuring or setting up a sidewall curtain. And in this case, we're dealing with a natural barn. This particular one could be like a scraper barn that's used for raising pigs. So in this case, they'll have various curtains, and each of them controlled independently. You could just have one set of curtains and have them all operate together, or set them all to use all the sensors. But we'll show this example, and then you always could do it a simpler approach to it. So we set up our curtain number 4 on channel number 11. So we'll just go to the hotkey there. We could also go into system setup and enter to go in to the right or left until we get to where we can press enter to go into devices, or to get to the same settings if we go right or left from system setup. So we've got that option, but the easy thing is just to use the hotkey next to the toggle switch for either the open or the close for this device. So it shows currently using all sensors. We're actually going to change that and just have it use sensor number 4. So now it's just using sensor 4. What this allows us to do is that curtain number 1 will use sensor 1, curtain number 2 will use sensor 2, curtain number 3 will use sensor 3, and curtain number 4 will use sensor 4. So they all independently can adjust based on the temperature in that little part of the building. So that's one of the nice things about the way our curtains operate. Otherwise, you could just have it work off the room average by leaving it at all. Open and close temperatures, we're going to, at the days of age that we've got right now, we do want this to be 70, and this one we'll set to, let's say, 68. So what this accomplishes for us is once the temperature rises to 70 degrees and above, it's going to be opening this side curtain, and once it cools down enough, it'll start closing again. So like if it cools off enough in the evening, or because a storm comes through, it'll start closing. So those are the trigger points for either turning on the open channel or the closed channel on the device. When it does hit the open, we're going to set this for, let's say 3 inches and 3 minutes. What that accomplishes is that when it gets above that temperature, it will open for 3 inches and then wait 3 minutes to see if if that temperature is satisfied, that now it's maybe between the open temp and the closed temp, or possibly even the temperature has gone down enough to trigger the close. So it just keeps you from moving those curtains all the time to try to get an optimal temperature. We get close and we don't wear out our curtain machines. So the next one is with the close. We'll do that as well. In this case, we'll set that at a 4 and then a 2. And why would we do 3 and 3 and then 4 and 2? Well, in this case, when it's closing, like let's say a rainstorm comes through, you want it to be a little more aggressive. So it's got less of a pause time before it checks, and then it's going to be moving it 4 inches each time toward close, that it's below that close temperature. Response mode, we can either do standard or aggressive. It's not going to make a lot of difference. We're just going to go with the standard. Typically, full opening size. In this case, we're going to say our opening is 48, so we're not going to change that either. Full opening travel time, we'll change this to maybe a little more realistic number. We'll make them 3 minutes. And then the close time could be slightly different, so it's worth timing these from full open to full close. But we'll assume they're both 3 minutes. So that's a good setting. Purge opening size, in a cooler climate especially, we'll make that a little less than the 6 that was the default. The reason for a purge opening size is so that since there aren't fans in this building, the way that it gets fresh air when the curtains are closed and nothing as far as temperature inside the room is causing it to open them up to cool the building. It will then periodically purge, and then also have the ability to purge by humidity. And when it does, it will crack the curtains those 4 inches for the prescribed number of seconds and then close again. And you can have a more aggressive one once it hits a certain humidity point, which indicates that you might have some air quality issues and you want to be more aggressive. So those are in other settings, but that's affected by what this opening size is, because this is what it goes to. The exercise delay days is how many days between doing an exercise. So this would be an exercise is going through a cycle of going fully closed and then back fully open, and to the spot where it was at. So what this does is, in a warmer climate where those curtains might be down for days at a time and not cool off enough at night to be closing up, it will get rodents out of there, it'll get moisture, rain out of the curtain by closing it and then going back to open. So that's something we can set. When it's set at 0, it's disabled, but you can put a number of days, the duration between which you do an exercise cycle. So if you wanted to do it once a week, you could do 7 days. Perform resync at, and this is a time of day, so a daily thing. If it hasn't made it to full open or full close in the last 24 hours, it'll go to whichever is closest at this time of day to get a calibration point on your curtain. And we're back around to which sensors we're using. So those are the settings for the curtain itself. There are things that affect the curtain. So we'll just go to control, settings, and then we'll arrow down. And since we do have a side curtain and a ridge vent, both in here, it'll give us this screen of ridge to curtain interlock, and we will choose to interlock them. This generally works quite well. What this does is that as the curtains open from full close, it'll open the chimney actuator will move the same amount. So when it moves that first 3 inches and pauses 3 minutes, it'll crack open the chimney those same 3 inches. When it goes back to 0, the chimney will go back to 0. When the chimney gets fully open at 12 inches, it doesn't continue to open because it's already full open, but the curtain will continue to go to the 48 inches that we set. Another setting in here is heater to curtain interlock. So we have the choice here to have no interlock, zone interlock, or all zone interlock. So in this case we'll want to just do all zone interlock. We've really only got the single zone, but it will give us the connection between the curtain and the heaters. So if the heaters are being triggered to come on, it'll prevent any of the curtains from opening up while heaters are running. So it's just something to save a little bit on the propane, LP, or whatever kind of fuel we're using to heat our building. So that was just a couple other things that we wanted to touch on in our settings with regard to setting up sidewall curtains.